Vandeham Shri Guroho Shriyutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha. This is the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, and we're reading in the Adi Khanda, part 1. Yesterday we read the Mangalacharana verse, and there's more to that chapter. I'm going to read a few chapters. There's chapter summaries here, so I thought we could read a couple of chapter summaries, and then we'll begin with the Lord's Leelas after his appearance. So chapter 2 is entitled The Lord's Appearance. This chapter describes the appearance of the Lord's elders and eternal associates by the desire of the Lord. The godless atmosphere of Navadvip, Sri Advaita Prabhu's worship of Krishna with water and tulasi leaves, the appearance of Sri Nityananda on the 13th day of the waxing moon, the prayers offered by the demigods to the Lord in the womb, the appearance of Sri Gaurachandra on the full moon night of the month of Phalgun, amidst the congregational chanting of the holy names, and the joyful celebration of the Lord's appearance. The science of the Supreme Lord and his various incarnations is difficult to understand. What to speak of ordinary living entities? Even Lord Brahma cannot fathom this science without the mercy of the Lord. The statement of Lord Brahma in Srimad Bhagavatam is the evidence in this regard. Although the cause of the Supreme Lord's appearance is most confidential, the statements of Bhagavad Gita reveal that Lord Vishnu appears in every millennium in order to protect the pious people, deliver the miscreants, and re-establish the principles of religion. Therefore, the author has pointed out that the chanting of the holy names of Krishna is the religious principle for the age of Kali. Sri Gaurahari has appeared along with his abode, Sri Navadvip, to propagate this Yuga Dharma. The author also explains that by the will of the Lord, great devotees and eternal associates, such as Ananta, Shiva, and Brahma, appeared prior to the Lord in various impious families and impious places where the Ganges does not flow, and the holy names are not chanted. In this way, such families and places were purified. The author also describes how after the appearance of Sri Gaurahari, his associates joined him in Navadvip to assist in his Sankirtana movement. At the time of the Lord's appearance, Sri Navadvipa was most prosperous. Millions of people took bath at each of the bathing ghats on the Ganges. By the benedictions of Saraswati and Lakshmi, the residents of Navadvip were absorbed in scholastic pursuits and material enjoyment. But there was ample evidence of people's aversion to Lord Krishna. Although it was the beginning of Kali Yuga, people exhibited the behavior foretold in the future of this age. People considered their religious duty was to worship demigods such as Mangala Chandi, Vishahari, and Vashali. They thought that the purpose of having money was to spend it for enjoying the marriage of their sons and daughters, or the marriage of idols. Since the so-called Brahmanas and scholars maintained the ass-like mentality of accepting only the gross meaning of the scriptures without understanding the actual purport, when they tried to teach their students, both teachers and students were bound by the ropes of Yamaraj and led to hell. This is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's chapter summary, not mine. Even the so-called austere renunciates did not chant the names of Hari. Everyone was maddened with pride on account of their high birth, opulence, knowledge, and beauty. At that time, Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, along with pure devotees like Srivas, loudly chanted the names of Lord Hari. But people who were averse to the Lord continually harassed and teased the non-envious pure devotees. When the compassionate Sri Advaita Prabhu saw people's extreme aversion to Krishna to cause great distress to the devotees, he began to worship Krishna with water and tulasi with a vow to bring about the advent of Krishna. Before the advent of Lord Gaurahari, Sri Nityanand Prabhu, who is non-different from Lord Baladeva, the elder brother of Lord Krishna, appeared from the womb of Padmavati, the wife of Harai Pandit, in the village of Ekachakra in Radhadesh, on the 13th day of the waxing moon in the month of Magh. Meanwhile, in Navadvip, Sri Vishwarupa Prabhu, who is non-different from Nityanand Prabhu, appeared as the son of Shachi and Jagannath, after their many daughters had met early deaths. Just as Vasudeva and Devaki had 6 sons prior to Lord Krishna, prior to actually Balaram and Subhadra, really technically. So in the same way, Jagannath Mishra and his wife Shachi Devi, they had what appeared to be 7 daughters who died early. A few years after the advent of Sri Vishwarup, Sri Gaurahari, the original the original personality of Godhead, appeared in the hearts of Sri Shachi and Jagannath, who were non-different from Devaki and Vasudeva. Understanding this, the demigods offered prayers to the Lord. Sri Gaura Krishna, the supreme absolute truth and source of all incarnations, who was situated within the womb of Shachi, Sri Gaurchandra, the inaugurator of the Sankirtana movement, appeared during an eclipse on the full moon night in the month of Phalguna, as everyone engaged in the congregational chanting of the names of Hari. This chapter ends with a jubilant celebration of the Lord's advent, accompanied by the chanting of auspicious hymns, and the demigods' visit to the house of Shachi and in the form of human beings. In chapter 3, there's a description of the calculation of the Lord's horoscope. After the appearance of Sriman Mahaprabhu, along with the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord, on the pretext of a lunar eclipse, the calculation of the child Vishwambhara's horoscope by Sri Nilambara Chakravarti, the celebration of Vishwambhara's appearance at the home of Jagannath Mishra, and the glories of the appearance days of Vishnu and the Vaishnavas. Prior to his advent, Sriman Mahaprabhu preached the congregational chanting of the names of Lord Hari on the pretext of a lunar eclipse. And then he appeared in this world. What to speak of the others, even those who had never uttered the names of Hari by mistake, loudly chanted the names of Hari while going to take bath in the Ganges on that day. Does everyone understand this? Why were they chanting? Because the eclipse is considered to be inauspicious. Nowadays, nobody cares. Nobody even knows when there's an eclipse. But followers of Vedic culture are very sensitive to matters of purity and contamination. So they cannot even allow the sun or the moon, depending on which one is being eclipsed, to touch the grains in your house. You have to empty your house of all the grains because they become contaminated. Close all the blinds, do Harinam Sankirtana. That's the observance. So they were doing that in Navadvip. Rahu Grahana, they call it. Rahu. Who is Rahu? Huh? Not Saturn. Similar to Saturn. There are 2 lunar nodes, they say in Western astrology. He was one of the demons, and at the advent of Mohini Murti, after the churning of the ocean of milk, so many valuable things were there. So one of those things was a pot of Amrita, which Mohini Murti incarnated immediately to take charge of. So she was taking charge of this pot of nectar, and she was bewitching all the demons in order to distract them away from the pot of nectar that she was holding. And somehow or other, this Rahu got into the line with all the Devatas where he didn't belong. And he took as much as a drop of the nectar from this Amrita ghat pot. And he was sitting next to the sun and the moon, in between the sun and the moon. So the sun and the moon, they pointed out to Mohini Murti that he has taken 1 drop of nectar. So what did Vishnu do? He took his Sudarshan chakra and cut his head off before he could swallow that nectar. But because the nectar went into his mouth and out of his throat, but did not go into the body, the head of Rahu is always eternal. So the head of Rahu is the only thing that we know of Rahu. And, the other one is Ketu, is his tail. So every once in a while, the when the head of Rahu swallows one of these planets. He's maintained animosity towards the sun and the moon ever since. So once in a while he tries to swallow them, but they can't get very far, so they always come back relatively quickly. The eclipse doesn't last that long as it takes to get from the mouth out the bottom end of the throat. Rahu Grahana, they call it for that reason. These names all have significance. So on the eclipse, on the occasion of the eclipse, there's always chanting of Sankirtana, and avoiding anything of any great material importance because it's considered to be an inauspicious time. Even these great demigods like the sun and the moon, sometimes they have to be eclipsed. So if it happens to us, we shouldn't worry about it. So the loud chanting of Krishna's names filled the 10 directions. Sri Shachi and Jagannath forgot themselves in ecstasy as they looked at the beautiful face of their son. The great astrologer Sri Nilambara Chakravarti found the symptoms of an exalted personality in his calculation of the Lord's horoscope. He was struck with wonder and began to glorify the Lord according to this horoscope. One particular Brahmana there described Sriman Mahaprabhu as Lord Narayana himself, the deliverer of the world, the founder of religious principles, an unprecedented preacher, and the giver of religious principles desired by personalities like Lord Shiva and Shukdev Goswami, the bestower of mercy on all living entities, the life and soul of the entire universe, and the worshipable Lord of everyone. He thus revealed all these extraordinary qualities of the Lord. That Brahmana further declared, innumerable universes will glorify the activities of this child, Narayana. This child is the embodiment of Bhagavata Dharma. He will preach the religious principles for the age of Kali, like the Yuga avatar of Lord Vishnu. Like the Yuga avatar of Lord Vishnu. Why does he say like the Yuga avatar of Lord Vishnu? This is esoteric. Someone should know. Because he's not actually an avatar of Lord Vishnu. He is the avatari of Lord Vishnu. He is the origin of the Vishnu expansions. This is a big topic, sometimes controversial. Ete changsha kala pungsa krishnastu bhagavan swayam indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yoge yoge. In the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, there is a long list of all the avatars of Lord Vishnu. And at the end of that list, this verse comes. Ete, all these. Changsha kalat pungsam are all the amshas or kalas. Both amsha and kala means a part of the Supreme Lord. Krishna's tu, but Krishna, Bhagavan Swayam, is the original Bhagavan. This is in Srimad Bhagavatam. So on the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam, we say that although many people consider Krishna to be the 8th incarnation of Vishnu, and in a sense that's not incorrect, still Krishna himself is the origin of all the Vishnu expansions. According to the Pancharatra system, Krishna's first expansion is Balaram. And from Balaram who comes? Sankarshana, Mahasankarshana. And from Sankarshana we get Chaturvyuha. From the Chaturvyuhas we get the Purusha avatars. There are 3 of them. There's Mahavishnu, the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, Karanodakashayi Vishnu, and Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And from this Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, he expands further as Paramatman within the hearts of all living beings, even within our hearts. And he also expands as all of the avatars. So if Krishna is appearing as the avatara of this Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, that's fine. But that Kshirodakashayi Vishnu himself is originally coming from Krishna. This is esoterica, but it's very important. And the reason we say that he appeared to be like the incarnation of Vishnu is because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has identified himself as Krishna, Bhagavan Shri Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. He's not an incarnation of Vishnu, although he does accept the function of the Yuga avatar of Lord Vishnu in the Kali Yuga. But he's actually not, he's Krishna directly. This is more esoteric knowledge. But it's significant that he says like this. This child will embody I'm sorry, I read that already. This child will be known as Sri Vishwambhara and Navadvipa Chandra. Fearing that there may be rasabhasa, or the unfavorable overlapping of mellows, the Brahman did not foretell the sannyas, pastimes of the Lord. This chapter ends with the descriptions of the tumultuous sound of various musical instruments in the house of Jagannath Mishra. The mixing of the demigods' wives with the Brahmana's wives, their blessing the child with durva grass and rice paddy, their request to the Lord to benefit everyone by remaining in this world for a long time, the celebrations throughout Navadvip of the Lord's appearance, the glories of Sri Gaur and Sri Nityananda's appearance days, how the living entities who observe these days are relieved of nescience and attain devotion to Lord Krishna, the equally glorious nature of the appearance days of both Vishnu and the Vaishnavas, and lastly, the eternal nature of the appearance and activities of the Lord and his devotees. That's chapter 3. Now, chapter 4 of the Chaitanya Bhagavat begins with some of the Lord's early pastimes, so we can begin. This chapter 4 deals with his name-giving ceremony, his childhood pastimes, and kidnapping of the Lord by thieves. So I'll skip the introduction and we'll just read the verses. Jaya Jaya Kamala Nayana Gaura Chandra, Jaya Jaya Tomara Premera Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to the lotus-eyed Lord Gaur Chandra. All glories to the devotees who are filled with pure love of God. O my Lord, please cast your glance of causeless mercy on me, so that my mind may worship you day and night. In this way, Sri Gaur Chandra advented, and the happiness in the house of Shachi increased day by day. When the powerful Vishvarup would see his brother, the reservoir of pleasure, he would smile and take him on his lap. Vishvarup is the older brother of Sri Vishwambhara, the older brother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was the incarnation of Balaram. So as Balaram used to protect Balkrishna, so Vishvarup used to protect Nimai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's childhood form. All the relatives and friends of the Lord's family would gather around the child both day and night. Some would recite mantras invoking Lord Vishnu's protection, and some would recite mantras invoking Goddess Durga's protection. Others would chant mantras while circumambulating the house. There's a small commentary here. The word Vishnu Raksha indicates the chanting of prayers to Vishnu, who destroys all dangers, for protecting the child. The word Devi Raksha indicates the chanting of prayers to Durga, for protecting the child. Because, after all, this is in Bengal. Many Shaktas. Whenever the lotus-eyed Lord cried, he would stop only upon hearing the chanting of the names of Hari. As everyone came to understand this great mystery, they would all begin to chant the names of Hari whenever the Lord cried. While the Lord was constantly surrounded by people, some mischievous demigods played pranks on them. One of them secretly entered the Lord's house, and when the people saw his shadow, they exclaimed, "Oh, there goes a thief!" Someone chanted, "Narsingha, Narsingha," and someone offered prayers to Aparajita, the goddess Durga. Someone else would protect the 10 directions by mantra. In this way, a commotion arose in the house of Mother Shachi. As the demigod left the house after seeing the Lord, everyone exclaimed, "There he goes." Someone said, catch him, there goes the thief." Someone else repeatedly chanted, "Narsingha, Narsingha." One exorcist said, "You are lucky you escaped today. You don't know the great power of Lord Narasimhadev." The demigods who were secretly standing there watching everything began to laugh, and in this way 1 month passed. On the occasion of the child's coming out of the maternity room, the ladies accompanied Shachi Devi for a bath in the Ganges. Here's a commentary here. The term Balak Uttana Purve refers to the occasion when a child is brought out of the maternity room. In ancient times, the mother had to remain in the maternity room for 4 months after the child was born. This occasion is also known as Surya Darshana Samskar, seeing the sun. Seeing the sun for the first time. It has now been established that after childbirth, Brahmana mothers are contaminated for 21 days, and Shudra mothers are contaminated for 1 month. At the time of Sriman Mahaprabhu, the period of contamination for the mother of the newborn child was 1 month, as confirmed in verse 17. Paripurna hoila masek egmate. In this way, 1 month passed. Later on, Satima, the wife of one Ramcharan Pal of the Sahajya sect, came out of the maternity room right after giving childbirth on the grounds that the child was gifted by Lord Hari. Details. As they went for bath, they sang and played musical instruments. They first worshipped the Ganges, and then they went to worship Shashti. Who's Shashti? Purport. Shashti is an imaginary village goddess. This imaginary village goddess is worshipped in order to ensure that the child would not die early, but would live up to 60 years. Therefore the name is Shashti. People say that the goddess Shashti is to be worshipped on the 6th day after the child is born. This is part of the Nishkramana Samskar, the occasion of coming out of the maternity room. The word Shashtistan refers to the place beneath either a peepal tree or a banyan tree where goddess Shashti is seated on a cat, holding a newborn child on her lap. After properly worshipping the feet of all the gods, the ladies returned home feeling satisfied. Mother Shachi then respectfully distributed roasted paddy, bananas, mustard oil, vermilion, betel nut, and pan to the ladies. As all the ladies, then blessed the child, offered obeisances to Mother Shachi, and departed for their respective homes. In this way the Lord performed his pastimes. Who can understand them unless they are inspired by the Lord? The Lord wanted everyone to chant his holy names, and so he cried frequently. The more the ladies tried to pacify the Lord, the more he would cry. But as soon as they chanted the name of Hari, the Lord would smile and look at them with his moon-like face. Knowing the heart of the Lord, everyone continually chanted the name of Hari while clapping their hands. Everyone happily performed congregational chanting of the name of Hari, and thus Shachi's house became filled with the sound of the holy names of Hari. As the Lord resided in the house of Jagannath Mishra, he secretly performed pastimes similar to those of Gopal Krishna. Wherever there was no one home, the Lord would scatter things here and there and then pour oil, milk, buttermilk, and ghee on the floor. When he understood that his mother was coming, he would lie down and begin to cry. In order to pacify the crying child, Mother Shachi would chant the name of Hari. Then she noticed the big mess in the room and inquired, "Who has scattered this paddy, rice, and dal all over the house?" She also noticed that the pots of yogurt and milk had been broken. No one could understand who had scattered everything about. There was only the 4-month-old child at home. 4 months old. All the relatives came there, but they were also unable to find a trace of who had done this. Someone said, "Some demon must have come," but he was unable to attack the child due to the protective mantras. This is the thing, mothers, they always have this. They take so many breaths and they chant so many mantras, and they assume that this is protecting the child. Srila Prabhupada's mother actually did this also, especially Bengali mothers. It seems they're more inclined for this kind of thing. She used to touch some saliva to her finger and then put it on his forehead like a bindi. And she was considering that this would protect Srila Prabhupada when he was a child. These are the kinds of things they do. Being unable to harm the child, he angrily made this mess and then fled away. They're thinking that there was some demon was there. Jagannath Mishra was very astonished to see the mess, but considering that it was an act of providence, he remained silent. In spite of the great wastage, Shachi and Jagannath forgot all their distress when they looked at the face of their son. In this way, the Lord daily performed some mischief, and then the time for his name-giving ceremony arrived. All the learned persons headed by Nilambar Chakravarti, as well as all the friends and relatives, came for this ceremony. Many chaste women who were decorated with vermilion and as effulgent as Lakshmi came for this ceremony. Everyone considered what name should be given. The women suggested one name, and the others suggested another name. The lady said, "Since you have lost many daughters, this last born child should be named Nimai." Commentary. The Lord had many sisters who took birth and died prematurely before his advent, and therefore the Lord was named Nimai, so that he would not also die prematurely. Nimai, why Nimai? Because a neem tree is considered to be auspicious. It wards off all evil influence, and he was born there. You can still go to Navadvip, that place is there, the neem tree is still there, you can see it, Nimai. After due consideration, the learned scholars there suggested an appropriate name for the child. They said, "Since this child was born, all the surrounding provinces have been devoid of famine, and the farmers have had sufficient rains. Just as Lord Narayana previously delivered the earth, this entire world has become prosperous since the time of his birth. Therefore, this child should be named Sri Vishwambhara. This name is also given in his horoscope. The name Nimai, suggested by the chaste ladies, will be his second name. Because, especially in Bengal, everybody has a real name and then they have a dak nam. The name that you call them is different. The occasion of the child's name-giving ceremony was most auspicious. The Brahmanas recited the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Vedas. Both demigods and human beings chanted the name of Hari, and conch shells were blown, and bells were rung. Jagannath Mishra, in order to examine the child's preference, they kept paddy, a book, roasted paddy, money, gold, and silver in front of him. Jagannath Mishra said, "Listen, my dear Vishwambhara, pick up whatever you find attractive." Everybody knows this one? We also do this when there's a boy or a girl. Sri Shachinandan left everything aside and embraced the Srimad Bhagavatam. From all sides, the chaste ladies exclaimed, "Jai, Jai!" Everyone predicted that the child would become a great learned scholar. Someone said, "This child will be a great Vaishnava. He will realize the purport of the scriptures in a short time." Whoever was blessed by Vishwambhara's smiling glance was filled with happiness. Whoever took him on their lap did not like to put him down. In this way, the ladies held him on their laps, he who is rarely attained even by the demigods. Whenever the Lord cried, the women immediately clapped their hands and chanted the names of Hari. As the Lord heard their chanting, he began to dance on their laps. This in turn inspired the ladies to chant with greater enthusiasm. Everyone there continually chanted the names of Hari, for they were induced by the will of the Supreme Lord. Without the Lord's will, no activities are successful. This is confirmed in the Vedic literature and the Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, the Supreme Lord, Sri Shachinandan, inspired everyone to chant his holy names as he grew up day by day. The crawling of the Lord was most beautiful, and the tinkling sound of the bells on his waist enchanted the minds of all. The word kinkini here refers to a belt that you tie around the waist of little children with tiny little bells, and they make a nice sound. Krishna has that also. He fearlessly wandered throughout the courtyard and grabbed whatever he saw, even a fire or a snake. The Lord then laid down on the coils of the snake. One day a snake entered the house, and the Lord caught hold of it in childish sport. The Lord then laid down on the coils of the snake. Seeing this, everyone immediately exclaimed, "Alas, alas!" But the Lord simply smiled as he lay on the snake. What does that remind us of? Ananta Shayana, Padmanabha Swami. All the people there called out, "Garuda, Garuda!" And the Lord's parents cried out in fear. Why were they chanting Garuda? Garuda eats snakes. He's the enemy of the snakes and the carrier of Lord Vishnu. Hearing everyone cry, Lord Ananta began to depart, but the son of Shachi tried to grab him again. They didn't realize that this was actually Sheshanaga. Lord Shesha accepted the form of a snake and assisted Gaurasundar in his childhood pastimes. The people who were present there considered him an ordinary snake, and following worldly custom, they surrendered to Garuda and prayed for Nimai's release from the snake's clutches. That is why Anantadev, the snake, left that place, but the Lord tried to bring him back. The ladies quickly caught hold of the Lord and took him on their laps, blessing him with the words, "May you live a long life." Chirajivi. Someone tried a protective charm on him, and someone recited auspicious hymns. Someone else sprinkled Charanamritam on him. Someone said, "This child has received a new life," and someone else said, "That was a special snake, therefore it did not bite him." Lord Gaurachandra glanced on everyone present and smiled. He again tried to go and catch the snake, but they repeatedly stopped him. Whoever hears these confidential topics with devotion will never be bitten by the snake of material existence. There's a nice purport here. The word samsara bhujanga refers to the snake of material existence. When such a snake bites a living entity, he becomes afflicted by the poison of material enjoyment, which increases his attachment for material existence. In this way, the conditioned living being is afflicted by the poison of enjoyment and considers himself to be the enjoyer. He then continually searches for material happiness, simply due to forgetfulness of Gaur Narayana. One who properly discusses the Supreme Lord Gaur Narayana's pastime of sleeping on the bed of an Antashesha never considers the Supreme Lord, who is full in 6 opulences, to be anything like the conditioned souls who are under the control of Maya. Such a person knows himself to be the eternal servant of the Lord. He is not agitated by the thirst for material enjoyment. In this connection, one may refer to the such statements as found in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 16, 61, and 62. Na yushmad bhayam apnuyat. He will never be afraid of you. And sarva papai pramuchyate. He is sure to become free from all sinful reactions. In this way, Sri Shachinandan eventually began walking in the courtyard of the house. The Lord's beautiful form defeated the beauty of millions of cupids. Indeed, even the moon desired to see his face. The Lord's head was decorated with curling locks of hair, and his lotus eyes looked just like Gopal. There's a purport. The word Suvalita means nicely decorated. The word Chanchala means curly. And the word Bhalakesh means refers to hairs that fall over the forehead. The words Gopalardvesh means dressed like Krishna. And the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from the body of Krishna. His external complexion is that of Sri Radhika, but his internal mood is like that of the gopis. He therefore was seen in the dress of a cowherd boy. The Lord's hands reached to his knees, his lips were reddish, his chest was broad, and he was decorated with all other auspicious symptoms. The enchanting golden body of the Lord resembled the color of the rising sun, and his fingers, hands, and lotus feet were all beautifully formed. As the Lord walked around, just like a young child, his mother became frightened, thinking that his reddish feet were bleeding. Since the lotus feet and toes of the Lord looked as red as pomegranate flowers, Shachi Devi feared that the Lord's lotus feet were bleeding. Seeing this, Shachi Mata and Jagannath Mishra became greatly astonished. Although they were poor, they were always joyful. One day, as they sat together in seclusion, they whispered to each other, "Some great personality has taken birth in our family. We have never before heard of such behavior in a child. He continually dances and smiles upon hearing the sound of the holy names. Whenever he cries, he is not pacified until he hears the loud chanting of the names of Hari. In the morning, all the ladies would gather around the child and perform Sankirtana. As they clapped their hands and chanted the names of Hari, Gaurasundar would enthusiastically dance. The Lord would become covered with dust as he rolled about on the ground, and then he would smile and climb onto the lap of his mother. Everyone felt incomparable happiness on seeing the various postures that Gaurachandra exhibited as he danced. In this way, no one could understand how the Lord as a child induced others to chant the holy names. The Lord constantly ran in and out of the house. He was so restless that no one could catch him. Sometimes the Lord would go alone outside the house and ask people for whatever he saw, roasted paddy, bananas, or sandesh. Captivated on seeing the Lord's enchanting form, even strangers would give him whatever he requested. They would give the Lord bananas and sandesh, and he returned home satisfied. He then distributed these items to the ladies who chanted the holy names. Seeing the Lord's intelligence, everyone laughed and chanted Hari's names while clapping their hands. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada comments on this pastime. Lord Chaitanya would go out and ask people for whatever he liked. If they had some sandesh, he would ask them for their sandesh, and they would give it to him because he was so cute. Then, when he would go home with his arms full of sandesh, he would see all these ladies would start to do sankirtana, and he would distribute prasadam. So Prabhupada comments, he says, this is an indicator of Lord Chaitanya's mission. First, he's inducing people to perform sankirtana, and when he's satisfied by the performance of sankirtana, then he distributes prasadam. So he was performing this from the very beginning. Seeing the Lord's intelligence, everyone laughed and chanted Hari's names while clapping their hands. The Lord went out of the house at any time of the day, whether the morning, noon, afternoon, or even night. He regularly went out into the neighboring friends' houses and playfully stole things, just as Gopal did in Vrindavan. He drank someone's milk, he ate someone else's rice, and he broke the pots if he could not find anything to take. If there was a child in the house, the Lord made him cry. And if someone saw him, he ran away. If by chance the Lord was caught, he fell at that person's feet in order to gain release. Please leave me this time. I will not come again. I promise. I won't steal again. Seeing the child's intelligence, everyone was astonished. They could not become upset. Rather, they loved him. Everyone showed more affection to him than to their own sons, for the Lord stole everyone's heart just by his presence. The matchless quality of the sweet form of Gaur Krishna, who is the Lord of the Samvit potency, is so powerful that it forcibly attracts all transcendently pure objects. In this regard, one may refer to the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.2.12 and 10.19.40. It's a characteristic of his commentary that he gives us many references to other places where we can look for more if we're not satisfied. In this way, the Lord of Vaikuntha performed his pastimes as he constantly wandered about. One day, 2 thieves saw the Lord and contemplated, whose child is this wandering alone in the streets? They saw that the Lord was wearing costly ornaments, and they considered how they would steal them. One of the thieves took the Lord in his arms and said, "My dear child," and another thief said, "Where have you been for so long?" The thief said, "Come, let us go home." And the Lord smiled and said, "Yes, let us go." The 2 thieves hurriedly carried the Lord away, as onlookers considered that they were taking their own son home. There were millions of people in Navadvip, so who could recognize everyone? The thieves, meanwhile, were greatly satisfied to see the Lord's ornaments. One of them thought, "I will take the bangles." And in this way, they both dreamt of their soon-to-be acquired riches. As the 2 thieves went towards their destination, the Lord smiled while riding on the thief's shoulder. One of the thieves gave the Lord a piece of sandesh, to keep him quiet, no doubt. The other thief said, "We're almost home now." In this way, as the thieves deceived the Lord, they took him away, and the Lord's relatives began to search for him. Someone called, "Come, Vishwambhara, come." Someone else called, "Nimai." They all became overwhelmed like fish out of water. Everyone took full shelter of Lord Govinda as the thieves took the Lord toward their house. Being influenced by the Lord's illusory energy, the thieves lost their way and returned to the house of Jagannath Mishra, while thinking that they had returned to their own home. Here the word Vaishnavi Maya refers to Lord Vishnu's insurmountable illusory energy which covers and throws the living entities. In other words, that was Mahamaya herself. She's in Navadvip. She resides there in that street. What is it? Ola Devi Tola in Navadvip. Praudhamaya, Mahamaya. She resides there as the servant of the Lord. When the thieves thought that they had returned to their own house, they prepared to steal the Lord's ornaments. One of them said, "Please get down, my dear child. We have reached home." The Lord replied, "Yes, yes, put me down quickly." Meanwhile, Jagannath Mishra and his associates held their heads in lamentation. The thieves, illusioned by Maya, set the child down at that very place while considering that it was their own house. They were still thinking, even in the courtyard of Jagannath Mishra, they were still bewildered by Maya, that they thought that this is our own house, and we're going to rip off this little boy. The thieves, illusioned by Maya, set that child down at that very place while considering that it was their own house. The Lord immediately went to the lap of his father, and everyone chanted the name of Hari in great joy. The people's condition was beyond description. It was as if their lives returned to their bodies. The thieves realized that this was not their house, but they could not understand where they were. In the middle of the commotion, no one saw what had happened. Thus, undetected, the thieves ran away in fear. Both of the thieves thought, how strange. One of them said, did someone perform some magic on us? What to speak of stealing the Lord's ornaments? Under the influence of the illusory energy, the thieves returned the Lord to his own house. When they understood where they were, they immediately ran away to their own place, and after carefully considering their foolishness and what had happened, they were struck with wonder. They both concluded, Goddess Chandi has saved us today. Then they regained their composure and they embraced one another. In reality, the two thieves were most fortunate, for they had carried the Supreme Personality of Godhead on their shoulders. In the meantime, everyone thought, who has brought him back? Tie some new cloth on his head as a gift. Someone said, I saw two persons come here. They set the child down and then vanished. Since no one said I brought him, everyone became perplexed. They all asked Nehemiah, dear child, please tell us, who brought you here? Where did he find you? The Lord replied, I went to the bank of the Ganges and then lost my way. As I was wandering on the street, two strangers took me in their arms and brought me here. Everyone said, the statements of the scriptures cannot be false. It is said that children, as well as old and helpless people, are protected by providence. In this way, the people considered what had happened, but they could not know the facts due to being illusioned by Lord Vishnu's illusory energy. Now there's a nice purport here. Lord Vishnu is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Sometimes he mercifully manifests before a person and instructs him in transcendental knowledge, and sometimes he bewilders a person with his illusory energy, by which he generally bewilders the demons. The illusory energy is also named Vaishnavi, or Daivi Maya. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. It is also stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, quote, thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead, along with his external energy, which was under his full control. Due to his external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product, and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. End quote. Maya means that which is not. In other words, Maya is that which induces a living entity to try to understand, measure, or achieve satisfaction from a material object with the help of his mental speculation. It is stated, Maya mukta jiver nahi swatah Krishna gnan. When a living entity is enchanted by the external energy, he cannot revive his original Krishna consciousness independently. Such people are therefore unable to understand the science of the transcendently pure absolute truth, or Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In this way, the Lord of Vaikuntha performed amazing pastimes. Who can understand those pastimes unless the Lord himself reveals them? Whoever hears these topics, which are confidential to even the Vedas, will certainly attain firm devotion for the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. Thus ends the English translation of the Gaudiya Bhashya of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, Chapter 4, entitled The Name-Giving Ceremony, Childhood Pastimes, and Thieves Kidnapping the Lord. Do we want to continue, or is it time to stop? Where is our host? What is the time now? So someone should tell me what to do. I'm only the servant. They're bhava vibhor. If you don't stop me, I'm going to go on. How's that? Okay, the next chapter, eating the mendicant Brahmana's offerings. This is a good one. Fasten your seatbelts. Jaya Jaya Bhakta Priya Papu Vishwambhara Dvaja Vajrankusha Pada Mahamaheshwara. All glories to the devotee's beloved Lord Vishwambhara, whose lotus feet are marked with the flag, thunderbolt, and goad. He is the Lord of all lords. The lotus feet of Sri Vishnu, who is the Lord of lords, are marked with flag, thunderbolt, goad, and banner. In this way, the Lord secretly manifested various pastimes while residing in the house of Jagannath Mishra. One day, Jagannath Mishra called out to Vishwambhara, "My dear son, please bring my book." Hearing his father's words, Vishwambhara ran into the room, and the sound of ankle bells was heard as he moved. Jagannath Mishra said, "From where is the sound of ankle bells coming?" The Brahmin couple, that is Shachi Devi and Jagannath, they began to look around. The word is used here, Runarjuna, in Bengali. Runarjuna. "My son is not wearing ankle bells, so where does the sweet sound of ankle bells come from?" They both considered the incident to be most strange, and they were unable to speak. The Lord gave the book to his father and then went outside to play. When the couple went inside the room, they experienced another wonder. All over the room, they saw extraordinary footprints decorated with signs like the flag, thunderbolt, goad, and banner. They both became filled with ecstasy on seeing those incomparable footprints. Their hair stood on end and tears flowed from their eyes. They both offered obeisances to those lotus footprints and said, "We are delivered. We will not take another birth." There's a purport. One who even once sees the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu is delivered from material existence. In other words, such a person attains the supreme destination known as that place from which no one returns. A less intelligent person continually wanders in the cycle of birth and death as long as he does not see the form of Keshava. Understanding this, the Brahmana couple, who considered themselves ordinary persons, spoke in this way. Jagannath Mishra said, "Listen, mother of Vishwarup, go and cook some fried rice and with ghee for our shalagram." A couple of things are interesting here. Why does he call his wife the mother of Vishwarup? Anybody know this? This is the tradition. Also, they never address this husband by name, but they'll call him the mother of the son. This is what they do, indirect. See? So he was very jubilant also, so he said, "Go cook some rice with ghee for our shalagram. Tomorrow morning I will bathe our Damodar shalagram with Panchagavya." The word Damodar shalagram refers to one of 24 varieties of shalagrama shilas, as described in the 5th chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilas. The family deity of Jagannath Mishra was Sri Shalagrama, Damodar. Panchagavya refers to milk, yogurt, ghee, cow urine, and cow dung. And snan means abhishek, or bathing of the deity. I can understand that our shalagram is walking around the room. That is why we heard the sound of ankle bells. In this way, they both worshipped shalagram shila with great satisfaction, and the Lord smiled within. One most pious mendicant. Now please hear another wonderful pastime performed by the son of Jagannath. One most pious mendicant Brahmana was wandering to various holy places in search of Krishna. He worshipped the Lord with the 6-syllable Gopal mantra, and he would eat only what he had first offered to Gopal. What is the 6-syllable Gopal mantra? Anyone know? Klim Krishnaya Govindaya. That's 8. Must be Klim Krishnaya Swaha. Gopal mantra, we know. So this is an abbreviated version of Gopal mantra. Klim Krishnaya Namah. In the course of visiting the various holy places, that fortunate Brahmana, arrived by providence at the house of the Lord. That matchless effulgent Brahmana had a deity of Balagopal and a shalagram shila hanging from his neck. The phrase Kante Balagopal indicates that the Brahmin carried his worshipable deities of Balagopal and shalagram hanging from his neck as ornaments. Sometimes in the old days, people used to carry their deities in the turban also. If you have a small deity, he will fit. That way he can ride and get, air conditioned. He constantly chanted the name of Krishna while he kept his eyes half closed and internally relished ecstatic love for Govinda. The word Govinda Rase means in one of the 5 transcendental mellows, Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Due to intense eagerness to see his worshipable Lord, Balagopal, that Brahmana's thirsty eyes were always rolling. When Jagannath Mishra saw the effulgent Brahmana, he respectfully stood up and then offered his obeisances. Jagannath Mishra received that Brahman with the etiquette due to a guest. A stranger who stays in a householder's residence for one day and leaves the next day is called an atithi, or a guest. The householders have the opportunity to serve such guests for only one day. It is the vyavahara dharma, or the rule of etiquette, for a householder to serve his guests. Honoring guests is as good as serving the spiritual master. In other words, a guest is as worshipable as Lord Narayana. What's the evidence for this? Anyone know? Taittiriya Upanishad. Atiti devo bhava, matri devo bhava, pitri devo bhava, acharya devo bhava, atiti devo bhava, ityadi. The mother is to be considered God, the father is to be considered God, the acharya is to be respected as God, the uninvited guest is to be treated as God. So they were practicing this. He personally washed that Brahmana's feet and then offered him a proper seat. After the Brahmana was comfortably seated, Jagannath Mishra asked him, "Where is your residence?" The Brahmana replied, "I am a wandering mendicant. I go wherever my restless mind makes me." The word udasin means renounced or desireless. So he was udasin. With folded hands, Jagannath Mishra said, "Your traveling is for the benefit of the world." And he's quoting the Jagater Bhagyeshe Tomar Paryatan. And it says the meaning of the second line of this verse is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Mahad vichalanam nranam grihinam dina chetasam nishreyasaya bhagavan kalpate nanyat hakvachit. O my Lord, O great devotee, persons like you move from one place to another, not for their own interests, but for the sake of the poor-hearted grihastas. Otherwise, they have no interest in going from one place to another. So Jagannath Mishra said, "Today I am especially fortunate. Please order me, and I will go arrange for your cooking." The Brahmana replied, "Please do whatever you feel is suitable." Jagannath Mishra then happily arranged all sorts of palatable ingredients. Jagannath Mishra and Shachi Devi nicely cleaned the kitchen and kept all the ingredients ready for cooking. Note here, they didn't cook for the Brahmana themselves. They allowed the Brahmana to cook. In previous days, they were so strict that the Brahmana would only eat whatever he himself cooked and offered. Nowadays, we're lenient. But this was the system. So they cleaned the whole kitchen completely. Those of you who have been to Mayapur, afterwards they smear the cow dung everywhere and make it very smooth and pakka, absolutely shuchi. And then they brought all the bhoga samagri and they put it together for this Brahmin and invited him, "Please come and cook for your Thakur." So the Brahmin came and was cooking. Satisfied with the arrangement, the Brahmana cooked and then sat down to make an offering to Krishna. Sri Shachinandan, the super soul of all living entities, then decided to give darshan to that Brahmana. As soon as the great Brahmana began to meditate, Sri Gaurasundar came before him. The Lord was naked, and all of his limbs were covered with dust. His eyes were reddish. Just like in Krishna Lila also this is going on. Dhuri bhare, right? Dhuri bhare ti sobhita samaju. Tesi bani sira sundara choti. He's covered with dust. The Lord was naked and all of his limbs were covered with dust. His eyes were reddish and his hands and feet were most beautiful. The Lord smiled and took a handful of that Brahmana's rice. He then ate the rice as the Brahmana watched. That fortunate Brahmana cried out, "Alas, alas, this naughty boy has stolen the rice." Jagannath Mishra came there and saw Sri Gaurasundar was smiling as he ate the Brahman's rice. In anger, Jagannath Mishra rushed to beat the Lord. The Brahmana, however, got up and apprehensively caught hold of Jagannath Mishra's hand. Mishra, you are supposed to be a cultured Aryan. What is the use of beating an ignorant boy? Boys will be boys. Only one who can distinguish between right and wrong can be beat. Therefore, I forbid you from beating this child. There is no benefit in punishing a child who does not know what is right and wrong. Therefore, I forbid you from punishing him. Jagannath Mishra then sat down in distress, holding his head in his hands. He could not speak or lift his head. The Brahmin then said, My dear Mishra, please don't feel sad. Whatever is meant to happen on a particular day is known only to the Lord. And there's a purport here. A person gets only the food that has been allotted to him by the will of the Supreme Lord. One must know that the Supreme Lord alone gives one the fruits of one's activities. A living entity is unaware of the future. Whatever is unknown to the living entity is known to the Supreme Lord. So the Brahmin continued, Please bring whatever fruits or roots are there in your house, and I will eat those today. Jagannath Mishra said, If you at all consider me your servant, then please cook again. I will make all arrangements. The purport here. One should carefully study the humble statements befitting a Vaishnava that like Jagannath Mishra, as he spoke to his Vaishnava guests. Jagannath Mishra continued, We have all the ingredients for cooking in the house. Please cook again, then I will feel satisfied. All the friends and relatives of Jagannath Mishra present there also requested the Brahmana, Please be merciful on us and cook again. The Brahmana said, All right, according to your desire, I will certainly cook again. Everyone there was happy to hear the Brahmana's decision, and they immediately cleaned the kitchen. Again, the whole thing they did all over. They quickly assembled all the ingredients, and the Brahmana began to cook. Everyone concluded this child is very restless and may spoil the offering again. Therefore, please take him to another house until the Brahmana finishes cooking and eating. Shachi Devi then took her son in her arms and went to the neighbor's house. All the ladies there said, Listen, Nimai, you shouldn't have eaten that Brahmana's rice like that. The Lord smiled with his moon-like face and replied, What is my fault? The Brahmin called me. Everyone said, Oh, deceitful Nimai, what will you do now that you've lost your caste? No one knows that Brahmana. What is his caste? Where is he from? You don't even know who he is. Now that you've eaten his rice, how will you maintain your caste? The Lord smiled and said, I'm a cowherd boy, and I always eat Brahmana's rice. How can a cowherd boy lose his caste by eating a Brahmana's rice? Saying this, the Lord looked at everyone and smiled. In this way, the Lord revealed his identity while speaking deceptively, but by the influence of his Maya, no one could understand him. Actually, elsewhere in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it's described that Nimai, when he was young, he also told his parents and relatives that this time I am a Brahmana because last time I took care of cows. Everyone laughed upon hearing the Lord's explanation. No one wanted to set him down from their embrace. As the Lord smiled and sat on various people's laps, whoever had held him merged into an ocean of bliss. Meanwhile, the Brahmana finished cooking again, so he sat down to make the offering. In meditation, the Brahmana called Balagopal to eat, and Lord Gorsundar, the super soul, again, he's within the heart of the Brahman also, he knows, immediately came to know this. He took note of this. Putting everyone into illusion, the Lord secretly came before the Brahmana with a smile on his face. Actually, elsewhere it's described, they not only took him to another house, they locked the door from the outside. They locked Shachi Devi and Nimai with some other ladies in the house. They locked them inside a neighbor's house. Putting everyone into illusion, the Lord secretly came before that Brahmana with a smile on his face. Unseen by others, the Lord then took a handful of rice and ate it, as the Brahmana watched. The Brahmana immediately cried, Alas, alas! And the Lord, after eating the rice, fled. Enraged, Jagannath Mishra got up and took a stick in his hand and chased after the Lord in anger. The Lord fearfully fled into another room, with Jagannath Mishra chasing behind and chastising him in anger. The word is used here, tarja garja. Sounds heavy enough. Jagannath Mishra said, Just wait and see what I'll do to you today. Although I am an Aryan, you think I'm a fool. Who has such a great thief for a son? Saying this, Jagannath Mishra chased after the Lord in anger. Everyone present tried to restrain Mishra, but he said, "Leave me alone. Today I'm going to beat him." Then they pleaded, "O Mishra, you are by nature magnanimous. What kind of intelligence would you exhibit by beating him? He doesn't understand what is right and what is wrong. Whoever beats such a child is a great fool. He'll not learn simply by being beaten. Children are all restless by nature. Children are mischievous by nature, and therefore even if you try to teach him, he won't learn." At that time the mendicant Brahmana hastily came there. Holding the hands of Jagannath Mishra, he spoke, "Listen, Mishra, this child is not at fault. Whatever is meant to happen on a particular day will certainly take place. Today Krishna has not allotted me any rice. I'm telling you, this is my realization." Feeling distressed, Jagannath Mishra was unable to raise his head. He simply looked at the ground and lamented. At that time, the most powerful and effulgent Vishwarup came there, the older brother of Lord Chaitanya. There was no comparison to the matchless sweetness of Vishwarup's bodily limbs. A Brahmana thread hung from his shoulder. He is the source of the Brahman effulgence, and although in a different form, he is directly Lord Nityananda. The purport of all the scriptures is eternally manifest on the tongue of Vishwarupa. Thus he is always engaged in preaching devotional service to Lord Krishna. Seeing his extraordinary beauty, the mendicant Brahmana was struck with wonder and stared at him continuously. The Brahmana then said, "Whose son is this?" The people there replied, "He is the son of Jagannath Mishra." The Brahmana was satisfied to hear this. He embraced Vishwarupa and remarked, "Glorious are the father and mother of such a son." Jagannath Mishra and Shachi Devi ki jai. Vishwarup offered obeisances to the Brahmana. He then sat down and began speaking words that were like a stream of nectar. "Whoever receives a guest like you has attained great fortune on that auspicious day. Although you are self-satisfied, you still travel about in order to sanctify the world. It is our great fortune that we have a guest like you, but we are also unfortunate because you are fasting. If you fast while staying in someone's house, it will simply bear inauspicious fruits. I am greatly satisfied by seeing you, but I'm very sad to hear about what has happened. By seeing you, I'm jubilant, but because you are fasting, I'm unhappy. Therefore, I am both happy and sad." The Brahmana said, "Please do not feel sad. I will eat some fruits and roots." "Banwasi Ami," he says. I live in the forest, so where can I get rice? I'm accustomed to eating fruits and roots in the forest. I seldom eat rice, only when it is easily available. I have become so satisfied by seeing you that I feel as if I have eaten millions of meals. Please go and bring any fruits, roots, or prasad that you already have, and I will eat that today." Jagannath Mishra, however, did not speak anything. He just held his head in his hands in distress. He was shut down. Vishwarup said, "I hesitate to speak, but I know that you are an ocean of mercy. It is the nature of a saintly person to be distressed upon seeing the suffering of others. Therefore, they always try to make others happy. So if it is not too much trouble, please cook for Lord Krishna again. Then my family's distress will be vanquished, and we will attain transcendental happiness." The Brahmana said, "I have already cooked twice, yet Krishna has still not allowed me to eat. I have therefore understood that he has not allotted any rice for me today. If Krishna's sanction is not there, why should we endeavor? One may have unlimited foodstuffs at home, but it can eat only with Krishna's sanction. If Krishna does not allot anything on some day, then even by endless endeavor one will never achieve a thing. If it is practically the middle of the night now, is it proper to cook at this time? Therefore do not make any further arrangements for cooking today. I will simply eat some fruits and roots." Vishwarup said, "There will be no fault if you cook. Everyone will be satisfied." Saying this, Vishwarup caught hold of the Brahmana's feet, and everyone else also requested him to cook. Enchanted by Vishwarup, the Brahmanas finally said, "All right, I'll cook." Everyone expressed their satisfaction by chanting the name Hari Bol. They then quickly cleaned the kitchen and brought all the bhog samagri again, the ingredients for cooking again. The Brahmana then began to cook, and everyone escorted Nimai to another room. Jagannath Mishra sat in front of the door where the child was detained. Everyone said, lock the door from the outside so he cannot get out. Jagannath Mishra said, that's a good idea. Thus Jagannath Mishra and others sat outside after latching the door. From the inside the room, the lady said, don't worry, Nimai is sleeping. He won't do anything now. As they guarded the child in this way, the Brahmana soon finished cooking. The pious Brahmana prepared a plate for offering and then sat in meditation and offered the food to Lord Krishna. The Supersoul, Sri Shachinandan, knew everything. He had already decided to give darshan to that Brahmana. Thus, by the will of the Supreme Lord, Nidra Devi, the goddess of sleep, everyone was deluded into a deep sleep. Sri Shachinandan then went to that place where the Brahmana was making his offering. On seeing the child, the Brahmana cried out, alas, alas! But no one heard him, for they were all fast asleep. It's just like he did with the guards in Kamsa's prison house. He can do anything. The Lord said, O Brahmana, you are indeed magnanimous. You are calling me, so what is my fault? You chant my mantra and invite me, so I cannot resist coming to see you. There's a long purport here. You invite me by chanting my mantra, and therefore I come and accept the foodstuffs you offer. Some people consider that worshipping and offering foodstuffs to Gauranga is performed by chanting the Gopal mantra, and by chanting this mantra he accepts the offering. Up to the time when deity worship of Sri Gaurasundar was introduced in the world, he was worshipped through Krishna mantras. But after the covered form of Krishna, the origin of all incarnations, mercifully manifested in his own form or deity, the name and end name to his most confidential devotees, the Lord's devotees began to worship the deity of Sri Gaura by revealing the eternal names and mantras related with Lord Gaura, as we have here, Panchtattva. So Nimai continues speaking to this Brahmin, you always desire to see me, so here I am. At that time the Lord exhibited a wonderful 8-armed form to that Brahmana. In 4 hands he held a conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower. In one hand he held a pot of butter from which he ate with another hand. In the other 2 hands he played a flute. He was decorated with the mark of Srivatsa, while the Kaustubha gem and a jeweled necklace hung on his chest. All of his limbs were decorated with jeweled ornaments. His head was decorated with a garland of fresh gunja seeds and a peacock feather. His moon-like face was beautified by his red lips. The Lord smiled as he rolled his eyes. His Vaijayanti flower garland and shark-shaped earrings swayed to and fro. His lotus feet were adorned with jeweled ankle bells, and all darkness was dissipated by the shining of his toenails. The Brahmana also saw the abode of Vrindavana, filled with wonderful kadamba trees and the chirping of various birds. Just like you have many birds here, I'm hearing them in the early morning. It's quite nice. It's like Mayapur. The only thing missing is that there's no kukila. He saw cowherd boys and girls in all directions. Indeed, whatever he had meditated on, he saw manifest before him. There's a long purport, but I think we should probably speed up here. Seeing the extraordinary opulence, the pious Brahmana fell unconscious with ecstasy. Lord Gaurasundar, the ocean of mercy, then placed his lotus hand on the body of that Brahmana. By the touch of the Lord, the Brahmana regained consciousness, though in ecstasy he remained inert and unable to speak. The Brahmana repeatedly fell unconscious to the ground and then got up again in great jubilation. His body shivered and perspired, the hairs stood on end. The flow of tears from his eyes resembled the Ganges river. The Brahmana then caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet and began to cry loudly. Seeing the Brahmana's humility, Sri Gaurasundar smiled and addressed him. The Lord said to him, please listen, O Brahmana, you have been my servant for many lifetimes. You always desired to see me, therefore I have come before you. In a previous life, I gave you darshan at the house of Nanda Maharaj. Don't you remember that? When I appeared in Gokula, you also joyfully visited the various holy places. By providence, you became a guest one day in the house of Nanda Maharaj. At that time, you offered rice to me in the same way, and after I ate your rice, I showed you this same form. In this way, you have been my servant birth after birth. From other than my servants, no one can see this form. I have thus disclosed to you the confidential topics that should not be revealed to anyone under any condition. As long as I remain in this incarnation, you should not tell anyone the secrets that I have told you. Otherwise, I will destroy you. I have incarnated to inaugurate the Sankirtana movement, and I will preach this process of chanting throughout the world. I will freely distribute the love and devotion that is desired by Brahma and others to each and every house. If you remain here for some time, you will see many such pastimes, but do not disclose these things to anyone. In this way, after mercifully pacifying the Brahmana, Lord Garsundar returned to his room. The Lord then returned to sleep as a child, and by the influence of Yoga Nidra, no one awoke. The Brahmana's entire body was filled with ecstasy after seeing that wonderful manifestation of the Lord. He smeared the rice all over his body and began to cry as he ate. He then danced, sang, laughed, and repeatedly cried out, "Jai Balgopal!" Everyone woke up by the loud cries of that Brahmana, who then controlled himself and washed his hands. Seeing that the Brahmana had eaten without disturbance, everyone was satisfied. The Brahmana thought, perhaps I should disclose to everyone what has happened so that they may be delivered by coming to know the Supreme Lord. The Lord, who is sought after by Brahma and Shiva, has advented himself in this Brahmana's house. Let me tell them so that this very child is the Supreme Lord, so that they may be delivered. But the Brahmana feared breaking the Lord's order, and therefore did not disclose the incident to anyone. After recognizing his Lord, the Brahmana secretly remained near the Lord in Navadvip. He would beg alms here and there and come daily to see the Lord. One who hears these wonderful topics that are confidential even to the Vedas certainly attains the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. The topics of the Adi Khanda are like a flow of nectar, for these topics describe Lord Narayana's pastimes as a child. Sri Garsundar is the Lord of Vaikuntha and the crown jewel of the predominating deities of all the planetary systems. He is the beloved Lord of Lakshmi and Sita. They who in Treta Yuga appeared as Ram and Lakshman and performed various pastimes like killing Ravana, and who in Dwapara Yuga appeared as Krishna and Balaram and performed various pastimes like diminishing the burden of the earth, and who all the Vedas address as Mukunda and Ananta, they have now certainly appeared as Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Nityananda Prabhu ki. Accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavan Das, sing the glories of their lotus feet. Thus ends the English translation of the Gaudiya Bhashya of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chapter 5, entitled Eating of the Mendicant Brahmana's Offering. There's much more, but I think it's getting late. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Bhagavat ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.